Welcome into Aura of a Goddess. This is Diva Goddess speaking. We're going to tap in and do an intuitive reading using my intuitive handwritten card messages. I might grab my tarot cards or the affirmations. We'll see where the spirit leads. Thanks for joining. Miracle worker. That's the word. We have a God on a mission, a holy lit God on a mission. God is game. God is game. He's a part of the game. Most likely in the 144,000 counts, along with this goddess. How are you guys doing? Thanks for tapping in. Thanks for joining me here on Aura of a Goddess. The last few days over this weekend for the Lionsgate portal on 8/8 and for the full moon in Sagittarius on Saturday, I've just been in this relaxation, renewal energy, meditating, trying to connect with the Most High, whatever your beliefs are, whether it's a spiritual beliefs or a religious a religious belief. I say release. So a lot of us may be releasing our religious beliefs to step more so in tune in to our spiritual side. I am a mix of the two. I do believe and understand the significance and the importance of the Bible, of the scripture, but I also understand and am learning by way of ascension that it has more significance. I've been on this spiritual journey for approximately 5 years. However, even prior to me fully understanding the spiritual nature of things in terms of the way the world is explained it today, even when I was on my religious walk, I had an understanding of the spiritual being of things, that we are but spirit having a human being experience. So I've always tuned into what my spirit led and guided me to understand, to nurture, to grow, to awaken to. So I am spirit led, if that makes sense. So even in the scriptures and religious the religious theology of things, I understand, or I always look to understand things on a deeper level. And I've always connected with God, with the Most High, with the Almighty. And whatever sense of that source that you believe in, I do believe in a supreme being or supreme beings, is what I am starting to realize. So this platform is for those gods and goddesses in the universe who understand that we possess a God body, a goddess body, that we are the gods and the goddesses that they speak of. We are not separate from God. We are of God. We are all from a higher source of power. We are those seeds that were planted here on earth for the awakening, for such a time as this, or the awakening of those souls, those lost souls, or just those souls who need guidance, for the divine, for always giving me understanding and discernment to discern what is for me and what is not for me, and also for calling me out, for calling me out of the crowd, for calling me out of the box, pulling me up out of the crowd barrel. I'm thankful for trusting in the Most High because this spiritual walk is not easy. So I know if you have endured any of the things that I've endured, this platform is going to find you in the universe. A lot of us are questioning a lot of things in today's society. We're getting in alignment. So this platform is for those who are wanting to align themselves, who want to heal, who take their health, their spirituality, their religious practices seriously. We are doing the work, we have done the work, which is why the Most High is entrusting us for such a time as this. The world is changing. Christ consciousness is coming upon us, whether we are ready or not, whether we like it or not. So shout out to all the gods and goddesses in the universe. Again, thanks so much for joining me. Thanks to those who have started to subscribe to my channel. Um, this is a fairly new platform, so you're getting in on the groundwork that I'm putting in to reach. I'm doing my due diligence to reach those who these messages are meant to reach. If that is you, you know, I'll lift you up in spirit because I do understand this journey is not easy, to say the least. But be determined. Do not give up. Hang in there. Hang on, God and Goddess. The Most High got you. It takes time for healing. It takes time to fully develop yourself and come into understanding on who you are. A lot of us had to leave a lot of fake friends, frenemies behind. Those individuals were karmic lessons. They did not have our best interests at heart, but the Most High wants us to know that joy, peace, and happiness is on the way. Trust in the divine, trust in the guidance that you are receiving, trust in in your downloads. Here's that God on the mission again. Bro walked in the room like a god on a mission, holy lit, divine masculine. So I've been telling you guys that there is the divine masculine. If you've been tuning into some of the readings that I've been sharing, the divine masculine card has been revealing itself. The divine masculine card has been popping out consistently. So I do feel a lot of us are coming into alignment with our divine counterparts, with our soul tribes, whether it be a divine masculine that you are intended to have this love connection with, or just divine masculines who you are desiring in your life at this time. Like for myself, I'm not necessarily looking for a love connection, but I am seeking out my soul tribe, those individuals who resonate on the same energy in the same realms that I resonate in, who have an understanding of what I have an understanding of, and who want to grow our understanding and our knowledge. And I do feel like the divine is lighting that fire, that holy fire within us, and guiding us towards one another. The divine hears our cries, our pleas for help, our pleas for something that is not superficial, something that has substance, something substantial, because we've had enough of the fakeness. We've had enough of the frenemies, those individuals smiling in your face, but quick to stab you in your back, talk behind your back, or just truly not have your best interest at heart. Those karmic lessons, we have endured our fair share. And I just feel like we're at this time where we want something more significant. So shout out to all the queens, the kings, the gods, and the goddesses in the universe. We have Peeping Through, Miss Ciara, Holy Matrimony Energy. So some of us may be coming into divine alignment where we will find our soulmates, where we will find our divine masculine, holy lit God on a mission. And if you are a divine masculine, you're going to find your holy matrimony energy. Just continue to do the necessary work on yourself. You're going to find your divine counterpart, your goddess on the mission. So yeah, those are the vibes today. But we are here to serve, to be of service to the divine. We work for the divine, the Most High. So yes, catch the vibes, catch that energy. Calling the divine for coverage, for protection. I ask the divine Holy Spirit to be my protector. I ask the archangels to stand guard. I ask the Most High Mother Goddess to always protect and guide me. Some individuals have sold their souls to the devil. It could be those enemies. I'm sorry, when I say enemies, I meant to say frenemies because that was the card we saw. But it could be enemies as well. Enemies, frenemies, all enemies portraying themselves to be for you. Cricket A mofos that are in the energy. They tried it and they failed miserably. They tried it and they failed miserably. They need to learn who to play with, and it is not us, said the divine. Don't play with me, babe. This holy lit God on the mission is back again. So I know for myself, seeing this card today, yesterday it was Sunday. Today is Monday, August the 11th, 8/11. But on yesterday, on Sunday, late last night, I did catch um, service online for the church that I follow. I joined this church several years back during Hurricane Harvey. This church has been in the community I grew up in since I was a child. And I remember I didn't attend the church when I was younger. I attended a totally different church. But and then I got married and I attended another church. But my ex-husband at the time, the church we were attending, they changed pastors. Our pastor retired. And something about the energy within the church changed with the new pastor. And we couldn't quite put our finger on what it was, but you could just feel, when God is in the house, when the spirit is in the house of the Lord, if you're truly connected, you feel it, And then it was just something when our original pastor retired and they selected a new pastor, something changed. The sermons just were repetitive. It was like this individual was not truly putting his all first and foremost into his mission that he had committed himself to as the pastor, as the leader of this church. So once a month, because my ex-husband was expressing, his discontent with service and, like I stated, the repetitive sermons, once a month we agreed that we would attend other churches within our community to attempt to find a church that resonated with him. And one of these churches that resonated with him is the church that I later joined during Hurricane Harvey. And this was the church that I remember growing up in Oak Cliff, and I would be in a certain part of the city, and this church was on the corner. And I remember anytime I would pass through or be in the neighborhood on that Sunday and pass through, I would see these individuals going to church. And as I stated, when I was younger, I was not a member of this particular church. However, something was drawing my spirit to this church. I couldn't understand it as a youth, as a young, I was in my teens, 16, 17, when my spirit was, being called out to pay attention to this particular church. But I was still of the world, still within the world, still, moving within the world. And though I've always moved within the world, I've always had a commitment to God and to my faith. But anywho's, even younger, I remember seeing this church and the members of this church even younger than my teen years. I remember, like 10, 11, 12, being in the neighborhood and seeing the work that this particular congregation was doing within the community. And I've always appreciated individuals who tend to their flock. because that was one of the main messages back in the day, tending to our flocks. Because if we don't tend to our flock, who's going to tend to our flock? You know, if we leave it up to the government or to other organizations to tend to our flock, they're busy tending to their own flock. So take that how it resonates. But I hope you catch my drift, and I hope you follow what I'm saying and have an understanding. But anyways, yes. So me and my ex-spouse, because I'm divorced now, I'm a divorcee. But he and I and my daughter, we would attend this particular church that I, would come across in my youth. We would attend this church once a month. Like once a month, we had agreed that we would attend a different church. And ultimately, this church was one of the churches that we had decided, resonated with our spirit. And so fast forward, I started attending the church more frequently. They opened up they built a new church. It's still in the same neighborhood in Dallas, but it's in not a totally different, it's still within that same vicinity, but it's several miles away from where the original church home was built and situated. But it's still in Oak Cliff, Texas. And so, as I stated, during Hurricane Harvey, when Hurricane Harvey hit, the spirit had led me. Something told me to get out of the city. I was separated from my ex at this time. I had relocated and moved to Houston, Texas. And the news was not reporting that we were to expect a hurricane. It was just, the news was only reporting to expect 100% chances of rain. That's all. Like I remember watching the weather, and across the bottom for like 5 days straight, it was saying 100% chances of rain, and it was all in red. They were sending the alerts and notifications to San Antonio and the surrounding metroplexes of San Antonio, indicating to them that the hurricane would hit San Antonio. But they were just forewarning us of 100% chances of rain and possible flooding in Galveston. But they were not mentioning anything about expect a hurricane, brace yourself for a hurricane for impact to hit us in Houston. But my spirit, this was in 2017 when Hurricane Harvey hit, my spirit told me, you need to get to higher ground. You need to move. And I sat on it. I remember checking out the news that Thursday night. I remember checking out the news, and I saw the broadcast of the meteorologist broadcasting 100% chance of rain. And I remember thinking to myself, because at this time I wasn't fully tapped into the gifts that I have, but I've always trusted my intuition and trusted my discernment. And I remember just thinking, if I get stuck here, I got my daughter here with me. My vehicle at that time was giving me issues. So I didn't even have my car with me in Houston. My car was in Dallas at a mechanic shop. So I didn't even have a means of transportation to get out of the city. But I was getting the alarm bells going off within me internally, telling me you need to get to higher grounds. And I'm just thinking, okay, well, what should I do? How can I get to higher grounds? This is my conversations I'm having with the Most High. I'm like, God, how? Like, you're steady telling me what to do, but I was limiting myself in my self-talk. I was like, but how am I supposed to do it? Like, I'm trying to make ends meet. I'm trying to keep a roof over my head for me and my daughter. I've already left behind my marriage. Like, I've listened to everything you guided me to do. I've relocated. I've left my hometown to keep myself from doing something stupid and something ignorant, because individuals were pulling on my energy and pressing my buttons, trying to test a goddess. And I was not trying to feed into that energy, because I was already trying to be, do better, be better, move differently, think differently, not get caught up in, whatever someone else has going on. So that was one of the first main reasons for me leaving Dallas and relocating to Houston, just to put some space between me and the negativity. And it was like, as I was doing so, the enemy was busy, because he was just making my way harder, and that could have been divine, those were tests. and lessons. I do understand that now, but at the time it was just like, first my car breaks down, then it's you know, I'm going through issues with this separation, and where it was going smoothly, now all of a sudden it's friction, and it's battles between the two of us. It's like a tug of war, you know. It's like ego coming into play, and it's like, where was this ego? You've never had an ego. Like, why all of a sudden? And it was just where we were able to co-parent. One point in time, things were becoming difficult between just the two of us to co-parent. You know what I'm saying? The two of us to hear each other out, to communicate, and do what was best in the best interest of our child, which was really more so my ultimate goal. Was, I don't care what we have going on personally in our lives, the ultimate goal is to co-parent, do what's best for our daughter. And anyway, so that was going on. My vehicle was giving me like hell. It was like hell on wheels. Every time I turned around, there was something else going on with my vehicle. And then I had my own business. I had my own, it was called Divas Parties. And I would, you know, I had been in business for almost a decade. And everything was, you know, like in place in Dallas with my business. I had my clientele base, you know, and I had a dance studio and things of that nature. And then all of a sudden it was just like the enemy comes to kill, steal, and destroy type vibes. That was the energy around me. And it was just like, you know, I had my own, we had a house together, and I just felt like I had to leave the house because ultimately it was a home I shared with another man. So if I'm planning to move forward in life and eventually find my true divine partner, I can't do so in a house that I built with another man, that I shared with another, you know, individual, that we have memories of raising our child in, and our own intimate memories within this house. I didn't even feel comfortable allowing other men to come to this home, because that's the type of woman I am. Like, I'm not about to be laid up in this house with you, and this was a house I shared with another masculine. Like, that's just not me. And so, yeah, I wouldn't even bring men around my daughter. When it came time for me to relocate to Houston, it was just like everything was just so out of whack, from my business to my transportation. Relocated to Houston, just trusting, just having faith and trusting in the Most High, trusting in God, trusting that my angels would guide me and provide for me. And I relocated to Houston. I actually lived with a family member, a younger sibling. And then he got an opportunity for his job to relocate out of the state. And so it was just like left and right, left and right. Like God was moving things around, and I'm just trying to keep my sanity. I was just trying to, like, literally start afresh, start anew, because the marriage, I had been in a relationship with this man for almost 12 years. You know, I met him in college. So everything was built around this union of the two of us that we had built together. You know, we were able to afford a lot of the things that we afforded because of the hard work that I put into a lot of things, from my work in corporate America to me building my foundation, which allowed him the opportunity to go after his dreams, because he had dreams of basketball. You saw the basketball card, the basketball game. You saw that card. Those were his dreams, to pursue basketball dreams. His hopes and ambitions were set around basketball. And it was like that when we met in college. But for me, it was like, if you don't tend to you, no one else is going to tend to you. And I learned that at an early age. You know, my mother raised me and my two siblings all by herself. Our fathers were not in the picture. And then I remember when she started enduring her own battles and her own struggles. I was the oldest, so I was left to fend for us to the best of my abilities at a young age, as at 15, 16, 13, 14, 15, 16. And I'm like, I'm not even old enough to get a job, you know, so how can I really fend for my siblings and provide for us? I couldn't. And ultimately, my younger siblings, they have the same father, in their father's family. was able to come and retrieve them and take them and provide and care for them. And then I ultimately ended up with my mother's side of the family. Um, and so, yeah, so I just remember at an early age having to provide for myself. I started my first job at 16. Um, and I worked hard. I went to school half a day and then got out of school earlier for the work co-op program and would go directly to work from school. Go home, change clothes, grab something to eat, and then I'm headed to work. And I would work till 10, 11 o'clock at night. And then all throughout the summer, I was working full-time hours. And then it was, when summer was over, it's back to school, go to school half a day and then work the other half of the day. And so once I got to college, my freshman year of college is when I met my spouse. Ultimately, my second year of college, my sophomore year of college, during the summer, going into our junior year, I got on at the phone company, which was, it was initially supposed to just be a summer job, to get my money up. They were paying decent. At that time, when you were making $14, $15 an hour back in, this was in 2000, back in 2000, and I'm early 20s, that was decent money for starting pay. When minimum wage was, I believe, $4.25 or $5.15 or something along those lines. So to come into a company or organization that's offering starting pay at roughly $14 an hour, it was something, that I was like, okay, I can do this. And then after the 3 months was up, or the summer months, the 3 months of summer was up, we were already at 6 months, we would be moving to $17 an hour. We had to complete the first 3 to 6 months of training, and then we would get a raise increase to 17 an hour within my first 6 months. So I ultimately chose to leave the college that he and I attended together and pursue this career path with the telecommunications industry. And it was going really well. Within 2 years, I was making $24 an hour. And I was able to purchase, my first vehicle, and then 6 months of that, purchase the second vehicle. And then within 4 years, I believe, I bought my first luxury vehicle. So for me, and then 6 years of me starting that job, 4 years of me starting that job, we purchased our first home. And so that's why I stated what I stated, because he was still chasing basketball hoop dreams. And then he finally, one of the things he shared with me was my drive, what he has seen, my energy that I'm putting out motivated him to want to, put basketball on the back burner and pursue, a stable financial source. And so that's, when he started truly taking life more seriously and looking into finding decent employment. Not to say he wasn't working, he was working and things of that nature, but a career, not just a job. It was right before we purchased our first home. I'll say maybe like 2 years prior to us purchasing our first home. Because we started college in 98 and we were supposed to complete college by 2002. And that's roughly around the time when he started to realize, I believe God was working on him, just urging him that it's time for him to man up and pursue higher goals and dreams, that there was more of a calling on his life than just basketball. But ultimately, yeah, so back to the church. So I ended up, and I'm sorry about this rant. I don't know where this rant came from. This was not the intentions, but I allowed the divine spirit to lead and to guide me. So this is the message. This may resonate with others. That may be the reason why spirit is urging me to share, to reveal this. because I know that a lot of us, our lives that we have lived, we have endured those lessons and those traumas so we can be a beacon of light for others, so we can guide, so we can show them, that they are not alone on this journey. And also for us to give back to the neighborhoods where we come from. Because again, as I stated, if we don't tend to our flocks, then who will? Start tending to me. I need to do a detox too. I've been contemplating doing a detox. So some of you out there may be thinking about detoxing your body. Some because I don't just channel for no reason. I feel like this energy is being channeled that I'm sharing with you. So some of you out there may need to do a detox, may need to do a fast, may need to change up your diet. Because I know that's the intuitive messages that I've been receiving too, is that it's time to eat more fruit, change up my diet, definitely try to eliminate the meat and the fatty foods more and more. But anyways, the church. So we didn't switch churches, but a scandal took place at our church. And it was mind blowing to say the least, but honestly, it was not really a surprise for us because I remember one night we went out to dinner, and the restaurant where we went to eat at, we saw the pastor of the church that we were members of. We saw him and a few of the other, I guess you call them parishioners of the church or members of the church. There were about 4 or 5 guys at the restaurant as well. And this was mid-evening, maybe about 4 or 5 o'clock in the evening. So the restaurant wasn't full. It wasn't filled at all. It was just only a handful of tables that had diners. And so when the host set us, unbeknownst to him, he set us literally at the table right beside where our pastor, and this is the pastor that married us. This is the man of God that married us at the church. He set us right next to the table where the pastor was seated with 3 or 4 other members of the church. And I remember one of the members was someone who played in the band. He was, he played the drums or something. He was in the band at the church. And then the other 2 members, as I say, that they were like parishioners, or they were just important members of the church. I'll just state that. And so they seated us. We spoke, and then they seated us, me, my daughter, my ex-husband. They seated us right next to our backs were to them. And then I remember not even 5 minutes later, they must have asked to be moved because they moved their table. They got up and moved. That's how God works. When you got the light on you, you know what I'm saying, and individuals are not living right according to the what they portray themselves, the life they portray themselves to live, they are intimidated by your lights. And you, like at that time, like I said, this is the man of God that married us. This was our pastor of our church that married us. And when he got up and they moved their table to somewhere else, because the restaurant wasn't filled at all, but they asked to be moved, and they got up. The hostess came and he said, "I have y'all table ready now. Y'all can follow me." Because we were not paying them any mind. We spoke and then we sat down to enjoy a meal, and I just remember when they got up and they moved, I just remember me and my spouse at the time having a conversation about, that's strange. What you think about that? And, I just, we just shook our head and we just left it at that. And then not even 6 months later, it was a big church scandal. And I'm not going to gossip about it, but just to say that was my first awakening to, you have to, it wasn't my first awakening. Let me take that back. But that was just further confirmation that you have to be in tune with the Most High. You have to have your own relationship with God so you can get the discernment and you can know truly what's meant for you and what is not meant for you. Because as I shared, me and my spouse, we already had been feeling a disconnect from the church. I joined this church because the original pastor of this particular church, my spirit, it was like he spoke to my spirit, and my spirit said, "This is your church." I was looking for a church home, and my spirit said, "This is your church. This is who I have chosen to guide you." And so that's the reason I joined that church, was because of the original pastor. And then when he retired within a matter of a year or two after me joining, it, I was already a member, so I was already committed. I felt like I was committed to that church. But also my spouse, I brought him into the church. Like he was led by me. Like he told me, like, because he wasn't raised in church as I was. Yes, his mother believed in God. His father and his mother believed in God, but he just wasn't like us. And not to say I'm a Bible thumper or nothing like that. I just always had a close relationship with God. That's what I'm saying. But my mother always sent us to church as little kids. When the church buses used to come around, the vans used to come around on Sunday and pick up the kids. Every Sunday, my mama was putting us on that church bus. Even if she didn't get up, my mother rarely, I don't think I ever recall my mama going to church. But I know she made sure we were on that church van every Sunday. I remember her ensuring she woke us up. And then it was in our spirit. Even when she didn't wake us up, we were already accustomed and attuned to getting up. It's Sunday, getting up, getting dressed, getting ready for church, for them to come get us. So I was always, in Christ, so to speak, even when I was in the world, and even as I got older, when my mother wasn't around to tell us to go to church, my spirit was always called, "It's Sunday, get up and go to church." I could be out partying all night Saturday, all night Friday, all night Thursday. I'm going to get up Monday through Friday and I'm going to work. But Sunday morning, I'm going to church. And that was just in me, just in my spirit to do so. But when our leader of our church, the pastor, changed, something, there was a disconnect in my spirit. And when we were getting married, I remember I wanted the original pastor of the church to marry us. And when they changed over pastors, when they changed who the leader of the church was, I was just thinking, dang, so Pastor such and such is not going to be the one to marry us. And I remember when we were working with the church on our church date, because we had to go through marriage counseling through the church. We had to do the marriage counseling class and all that. I remember asking, calling the church secretary, so, can we get Pastor such and such to come back to marry us? I remember, and she was like, "No, he's retired." I said, "I know, but can we pay the pastor to come marry us?" My spirit just wanted this man to marry me because I knew with his blessings, I just felt in my soul with his blessings over our marriage, over our life, it just meant something to me, but not, at the end of the day, the only blessing you need over your marriage is the Most High, is God. I understand that now, keep God, excuse me. My nose is itching. I got to look up the meaning of that because when I start to do these readings, my nose starts itching. So there's some sort of meaning behind that. But all I'm saying is just ultimately keep the divine at the center of your marriage, at the center of any relationship, whether it's a marriage, whether it's your personal relationship with self. Keep the Most High at the center of that. And that's ultimately what I chose to do, was keep the Most High at the center of my marriage, of myself. Since an early age, I've always trusted in God, looked to the Most High for love, for care, for guidance. So that's all I'm saying. So on this platform, you'll get a mix of spiritual and religious views because that's who I am. That's what I was raised on. You may also, hear me speak on things outside of spiritual and religious viewpoints, or not coming from the spiritual side of things or religious side of things, because at the end of the day, I'm just going to be me. I'm going to be real. I'm going to be divine. I'm going to embody this goddess that I am, and we are sovereign beings. And for me, myself, and I am learning more and more about myself and who I am on a daily basis. So be patient with me along this journey. Again, welcome into Aura of the Goddess. welcome to the Goddess Game. Welcome to God is Game. Whatever that means for you, you can leave it in the comments. If if this message resonates with you, drop in the comments a heart or a crown with God is Game or God is Game. Just to let me know that you tapped in, that you tuned into this message. I would greatly appreciate it. Again, my platform is fairly new. I did start this channel years ago, but I deleted all of the content because I felt like I had more growing to do and I wasn't fully prepared. That was my own personal decision. I didn't feel like I was prepared to lead and to guide others because I still needed guidance and leading myself. But the divine was pushing me more and more to put myself out there, to continue to trust in the divine, to continue to trust in the Most High. And so here I am today. But back to the Hurricane Harvey situation, I just was not in a space at that time where I felt like I could relocate, get to higher ground. I had moved from Dallas to Houston, and I'm living with a family member. Well, actually, at that time, when I initially moved to Houston, I was living with a family member. But by this time, I had my sibling had relocated out of state, and I had gotten my own apartment. But I didn't have my vehicle with me where I was living at that time. So it needed mechanical work done. And so I'm just questioning, like, how do you expect me to, I don't have the funds to get the vehicle repaired. I'm trying to make ends meet and keep my rent paid, to keep a roof over me and my daughter's head. And I remember I had an event booked through my Divas party, my own business. I had an event scheduled for that Saturday. And it was this Thursday night that I'm getting these intuitive downloads that you need to get to higher ground. And so that was one of the reasons why I went to the news to check out and see what's going on with the weather. Because I don't really watch TV. I had stopped watching TV early, like years ago, almost 10 years ago. I really stopped watching TV. So I would only turn on the TV when others were coming to me, telling me, either something regarding the weather, because I was in Houston and they get hurricanes and flooding and things along those lines. So if it was regarding the weather or if it was breaking news stories that, others have mentioned to me and I wanted to see what's going on, what are they talking about? Or if my spirit was saying, hey, check something out. Like if I was getting intuitive messages and, being urged or guide to turn on the TV, then I would do so. But for the most part, I didn't really watch a lot of TV. I had stopped watching TV in 2016, 2015. That's when I started feeling this shift. But I remember just turning on the news and catching 100% chance of rain. So I'm thinking, okay, well, maybe we'll be okay, But I knew I had to get to Dallas because I had an event scheduled with the client for that Saturday. So I made a phone call to Dallas. I made a phone call to a friend in Dallas. I explained to him my situation, and I worked with him at the phone company, and I was no longer at the phone company. He was no longer at the phone company. But when I first started my business, he was one of those individuals out of all the individuals around me, even outside of my spouse. He was the only individual that believed in my business, that like said, "Oh, you got something here. Oh, I want to support you. I want to back you. Hey, I'm opening up this building. I'm going to be doing XYZ in this part of town, and I want to give you a space. Are you still looking for a space where you can do your classes?" This was before I had my own studio. He came to me and supported me and like just poured into me when no one else had that same, no one else had ever done that for me. It was always me having to go out and make a way for myself. And so I remember us teaming up, and working together. And from that, we just blossomed and had this companionship, this true friendship. And I remember because our friendship actually started when we worked at the phone company together. We worked at the phone company together for roughly a year and a half, close to 2 years. And after that, our friendship still continued. And after I left the phone company, that's when he called me, because he had left the phone company, and him and a friend were opening up a business. They were opening up like a restaurant type vibe where it would be like spoken word and different activities going on different nights of the week. And so I was like, yeah, sure. Because he wanted to bring in clientele. He was like, I love, how you represent your business, and the clientele that you bring in. We want to be able to attract that type of clientele into our establishment. And so I was like, okay, so we came up with an ideal on how we would promote the two of us. And so, yeah, and it worked out. But I did that for several months. And then I was like, yeah, your clientele mix is not fully in alignment with the aura that I bring and that my women bring. And this is not the environment that I want my girls to be in. You know, you have to know when the crowd is just not for you outside of the money. You know, it doesn't, to me, money isn't the ultimate goal. Yes, I do desire to be a stable individual and have my financial goals fulfilled, but money is not the ultimate goal for me. Ultimately, my vision that I see for my company is what ultimately I want to be in alignment with. And so I had to, you know, walk away from that opportunity several months down the line. But another opportunity presented itself that came from that. And then ultimately he came back around and we teamed up again in a totally different environment. And it was a success. It worked out. So yeah, so I called on him, and he was a good friend. He came to Houston. He picked up me and my daughter. I explained to him I have an event Saturday, you know, and then they're talking about 100% chance of rain. And I just don't want to be stuck down here in Houston if something happens, because a lot of flooding goes on down here. And I don't want me and my baby to be just stuck and trapped with no means of moving around. I remember Megabus. I had looked into Megabus to see if they had a route. And they didn't even have any open seats for me to leave within 24 hours notice to get to Dallas that weekend. So I called on him, and he's like, well, yeah, just fuel me up. You know, when I get there, all I'll need just, you know, if you can do the gas, I got you. And I was like, okay, I got you. Say no more. Say less. We good. So he was there. He came through that night, and we left out. Because this was Thursday night, I called him. He came through Friday, and we left out. And Saturday, while I'm hosting my event, lo and behold, one of the individuals, she was on her phone, and she mentioned the storm, Hurricane Harvey. Ultimately, I remember we were at a hotel, the Anatole. We were at the Hilton Anatole Hotel in Dallas, and I remember one of her friends that attended the party was on her phone, and she said, oh my God, Houston just got hit by the hurricane. And then I remember them turning on the news in the room, in the suite that we were in. They turned on the news because it was roughly 20 to 25 of us at her birthday event in this suite. She had booked a suite, and she turned on the news, and lo and behold, the flooding, the devastation, it was just wild to see. And if you remember Hurricane Harvey, it was one of the most drastic storms that ever hit, you know, Houston. And then I remember just giving praise and thanks to God that I trusted and listened to the discernment and to my intuition, and left and made the necessary moves and the necessary call to get me and my daughter to Dallas. So I was just watching a reader on YouTube yesterday, and she was saying her city in Milwaukee was flooded, and that she's been doing readings regarding flooding, and warning them for several years now, and that her spirit guided her to leave the city, the state, and relocate elsewhere. So I'm saying this to say, when you get those intuitive nudges, do not ignore them. They could be life-saving moves that you make. That is not the first time that I have been guided to move, to get to higher ground. In 2024, last year, I had relocated to Florida, and I remember taking about a 2 weeks vacation to St. Pete, Tampa, Florida. And I remember one day standing on the beach shore in St. Pete. It was a Sunday morning. I got up, I left my hotel room, and I went down to the beach. And I stayed on the beach for a couple of hours. And then I remember as as I was standing on the beach, I remember hearing "Wade in the Water," that old spiritual hymn. Wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the waters. And then, it just kept replaying. I get intuitive messages through music. So I was like, okay, wade in the water. I'm in the water. So, I enjoyed the beach. I meditated, on the beach shore. And then after a couple of hours, because I went early that morning, like 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning. And then I remember I was there more than a couple of hours. I left about 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I left. So as I'm leaving, it's this long pathway, this long street. It's only like a two-way little street, but on either side, it's water. Like I wouldn't call it, it was like the shore, but it was houses. But that it leads up to the houses, but it's like not the shore. You can't see the shore. It's just like where the water, overflows from the shore, but it's trees on either side. And I'm intuitively hearing, get out the car and put your feet in the water. And I'm looking like, get out the car. Like, I'm looking at these trees and I'm thinking, I'm in Florida. It could be gators. Like, I'm not getting out this car. But the song just kept replaying. I was like, okay, I'm going to obey. So I get out the car. And as I got out the car, I parked. The road was too small where I really didn't have room to be pulling over to the side of the road, because anyone coming down, they're gonna, if they have to go around me, they're gonna be going into the lane that's oncoming traffic from the other way. So I'm like, get out the car, okay. So I obey. I get out the car, and then as I'm walking towards the trees, I'm looking at how I'm supposed to get through this to put my feet in the water. Like, I just put my feet in the water back at the shoreline. Like, what are you trying to say, spirit? And I'm just like, and plus I'm looking at the roots of the trees are like above ground, because there's really no dirt to cover the roots of the trees. So I'm like, how do you expect me to even get through here and put my feet in the water? Like, I get back in my car and I drive on. But when I get towards the end of where all the trees end, the song starts again. Wade in the water. Wade in the water, children, wade. So I'm like, okay. So the houses, now I see these big houses. So I'm like, okay, I see a spot where I can pull over and I won't be in the roadway. So I pull over, I get out of the car, and I'm looking for, like, where can I go to put my foot in the water? So I see like this drainage pipe, those big round holes in the ground, but it's like, in some of the movies where the people they walk through them, like, I can't really explain it, but it was like this big round drainage pipe, but where like the water may flow through. So I was like, okay, this looks nasty. This looks disgusting. The rock had moss on it. The rock had algae on it. And I'm like, this where you want me to put my foot in the water? Like, what if I catch gangrene or something? But I'm like, okay, Lord, I'm trying to obey you, but you got to make this make sense. The song started again. Wade in the water. So I said, okay. So I go on down to the water, put my feet in the water, and in the song, and then another song came on, because I was listening to the radio. Another song came on the radio, and I can't remember exactly what song it was off the top of my mind, but I said, okay, I'm gonna obey, because it was one of my favorite songs, and it was also giving me an intuitive nudge too. So I was like, okay. So I went on down to the water. It was something telling you. It was something talking about God. So I knew that was God confirming, do as I say. So I went on down, looking at these rocks, and I'm like, oh, ugh. And I literally kicked off my shoes. I left my music on, left my door open, and obeyed. And I put my foot in the water, and actually, like, the spirit just took over, and I started doing the praise dance. Like, as I'm leaving my vehicle, like, the spirit took over, and I'm doing the praise dance. I'm glorifying God, listening to this music. And as I'm listening to the music on the radio, and my feet are now in this water on these rocks, I'm like, okay, that's enough. Because I started hearing wade in the waters again. And then I heard specifically, God's gonna trouble the waters. And I left. I got out of the water, and when I got back in my car, and went back to my room, showered, and rested the rest of that day. Rested on that day, that Sunday. I remember my body was just so. I went and got something to eat and went to the room, ate, showered, and I was out of there. That's how the divine works around me. When the spirit takes over, it guides me. It gives me the intuitive messages through music. Like I've shared on my social media platform, some of us don't need cards. Some of us don't need tarot. Some of us are truly divinely guided, guarded, protected, and we get intuitive insights through dreams, through messages, divine messages, through visions, clairaudient, clairvoyant, clairsentient, through a sense of smell, a sense of taste, claircognizant, clairvoyant. Yeah, so a lot of us get those messages and we know when it's time to move, we know when it's time to leave. And when I woke up, I think I slept the rest of that day away. I woke up, it was like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. And then I remember waking up from a dream, and I remember it signifying that that was time for me to go. It was time for me to leave St. Pete, that something was going to happen. Wade in the water, children, God's done the trouble for waters. That was the message. And so I think I spent maybe 1 or 2 more days in Tampa, St. Pete, and then I left. I got up to higher grounds. I went back to the part of Florida where I had relocated to. I checked my P.O. box, and then I left. I spent 1 night in Florida because at this time I had a new car, and I was supposed to be getting some rotors, some new rotors. The car lot where I purchased the cars from, he's supposed to be putting new rotors on my car. So I was stayed in town long enough, went back up further north in Florida to get the rotors put on my car. I stayed like a day or two. I stayed 1 night, like 2 days, 1 night, and then I left. I went to Georgia because that's where I was guided to. And I was right outside of Georgia where the hurricane, tornado, or whatever, flooding had hit that area too. But I remember when I saw it on the news last year, when I saw it on the news that St. Pete was hit by the hurricane and the devastation that it caused. And I just remember God also speaking to me at that time saying, I entrusted you with these gifts for such a time as this. So, and I remember other messages that I was receiving. One of those I'll share with you was, this isn't just for entertainment purposes, though we are, required to say this is for entertainment purposes. A lot of times this is not for entertainment purposes. This can be life-saving for some individuals. Some of us are not here for your entertainment. We are not here for your enjoyment and simply for your pleasures. So if I don't do readings that are what everyone else is doing, or if my readings don't resonate with you, that's okay, because this isn't for everyone. I'm not for everyone. My light is not here just for entertainment. I'm not your entertainment vessel. And last but not least, just to wrap up the message regarding the church. In 2017, Hurricane Harvey, I remember when I was in Dallas, we were displaced. Me and my daughter was displaced. We could not go back to Houston. They had all over the news that individuals, you could not, if you had left Houston, they had the road blocked off. A lot of the roadways were blocked off due to flooding. Like the major roadway, the major highway from Dallas into Houston, I-45, had flooded out. So it was all over the news, like we wouldn't even be able to return. And plus they had brought in the National Guard into the area, and they were preventing us from returning. If you were not in Houston, you were being prevented from returning, along with other states. I remember that night, look, I was staying with a friend. When I would come to Dallas, I would stay with my best friend at the time. And I remember after my event wrapped up, at the hotel, the birthday party. I remember after the birthday party wrapped up and I went back to my friend's house, I remember watching the news more so to stay up to date on the weather and what was going on. And then I remember being on social media and they were announcing FEMA. would be if you were impacted by the storms, that you could apply for FEMA. So I applied for FEMA, and I remember them indicating that the American Red Cross had set up in downtown Dallas at the convention center for those of us who were displaced, and we could come there for aid, for help. And I had put my application in with FEMA, and I was reaching out because I'm like, I only had funds for the weekend, limited funds for the weekend at that, because the price that my clients had paid for me to host their events ultimately went to my friend to put gas in his vehicle to get us to Dallas, and he had a big truck. So I'm charging $200-300 for a 2-3 hour party, and that $200-300 was already spent before I even made it to town. So ultimately, you know, I put in my FEMA application because I'm thinking to myself, well, me and my daughter are displaced. Like, I don't want to be a burden on my best friend. Like, she has 3 boys, that she has to care for and provide for. And I'm in no position to truly, like, dish out any money to her for allowing us to be here. Not saying that she asked for that or anything, but just saying that's just, I don't want to be a burden on no one, so I want to be able to contribute in some shape, form, or fashion. And so, yeah, so I applied for FEMA. And then I went to the American Red Cross because we only brought clothes for the weekend. We only had 2-3 days worth of clothing for the week. American Red Cross, they had set up at the Dallas Convention Center at the K. Bailey Hutchinson Center. And I remember just being thankful to God. There were a lot of organizations, corporations that donated, and they had boxes and boxes filled for every age group with clothing, food items. The American Red Cross was serving 3 meals a day. And then I remember FEMA approved our application, and they covered us for a hotel stay. So we were able to get a hotel for about 2 weeks. I think I had the hotel for about 2 to 2.5 weeks, and then finally we were able to go back home to Houston. So I'm just saying, all in all, I give God thanks for all that He does in my life, to the angels, to the archangels who guide, who guard, who protect me, who steer me where I need to be steered to, who guard me when I need to be guarded, to keep me safe from harm, whether it be from natural disasters or enemies who, have who want to see your demise. I just give thanks and honor to the Most High. And so I was not intending to go on that rant for that long, but the church, when we were in Dallas, the church that I mentioned that I would see when I was younger, that I mentioned that me and my ex-spouse would attend once a month. We would attend a different church, and this was one of the churches that it resonated with his spirit and it resonated with my spirit. I actually ended up attending that church because after the scandal at my home church years prior, after a couple of years, after the scandal broke, about a year or so later, I stopped attending that church, and I would frequently attend this particular church. And so I felt like that church resonated with me and my, spouse. It resonated with us. So we would frequently attend this church. And then once he and I separated, this was the church that I frequently attended. I was living clear across town, but I would drive almost 45 minutes to an hour away to go to this church. And so I remember when Hurricane Harvey, I was in downtown Dallas, FEMA giving us a voucher for a hotel. And so I remember, and I would follow him when I had moved to Houston. I would follow this church. They have an online platform, so I would always tune in on Sundays via the online platform. And so I had made it my duty. I'm going to church this Sunday. I'm in town. There's no excuse. Whenever I was in town, I'm going. I'm going to be in the building. And so I went to church that Sunday. And then that Sunday they announced, hey, if you're here displaced due to Hurricane Harvey, we are going to have some care packages put together for you guys. So please meet us in the atrium after service today so we can get your contact information. And next Sunday at church, we're going to have, care packages available for you guys. And so if you're still in town. So, of course, me and my daughter, we were in church that Sunday. So I went and completed the form. The next Sunday, they had big box care packages. My neighbor's dogs. They had a care package for us, and they surprised us with a check from the church. And it wasn't no measly couple $100. I was just so thankful because God will make a way. That's all I'm trying to say is God will make a way if you just trust and believe. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know no other way than with God. That's all I can say. So I'm not here to push religion on anyone. I'm not here to push spirituality on anyone. I'm just here to make you think. I'm just here to help awaken. I'm here to be a beacon of light. So with that being said, I think that's enough said. And me and my daughter ended up joining the church thereafter because we were in town for almost 2.5, 3 weeks roughly. And we went to church each Sunday that we were here. And then, because like I said, I followed this church online. And then we signed up the last service we went to while we were displaced here for Hurricane Harvey. We ended up signing up for, I signed up for us to become members of the church. We went up, when they call out, if you want to renew your relationship with God, we went up to the front. And then, became indicated that we wanted to become members of the church. And so we had to come back to Dallas like a month later to do their new members orientation class. And also, so I became a member of the church, but I was located in Houston, so I didn't get to frequent the church as often as I would like. But I tried to stay involved via social media platforms. They also have a social justice ministry. And in 2018, the year after Hurricane Harvey, I remember coming back to Dallas. I relocated back to Dallas in 2018 for approximately 6 months. And I remember their social justice ministry ended up, that's when Botham John was murdered by the police officer Amber Geiger. And I remember there was going to be a rally in front of the Dallas Police Department. There was a call to action. So I'm big on our rights and respect for our communities, respect for us as a people. I'm big on the fight for justice, or I was more so then than I am now. The divines, pulled me back from that energy somewhat. Not to say that I don't believe in the fight for justice, but just to say I needed time. Like I said, I needed time to heal and further go within myself. I went into hermit mode around late 2018 into 2019 because of personal reasons. And so I'm just now in the last few years, well, actually the last couple of years, the last year or two, feeling more confident and more comfortable and feeling like my healing process is, is fulfilled. But their social justice ministry, at the time, I didn't know it was them that were involved in this call to action. There actually was another organization that was it was called Next Generation Action Network. I saw they had a call to action for us to meet at DPD headquarters. And so when I arrived, that's when I realized that the church was actually, their justice ministry was actually a part of the forerunners for this call to action. And lo and behold, the pastor of the church popped up as we went to do our match. They initially we were in front of DPD. They had a well-known attorney, Lee. What is his last name? I can't think of his last name, but you may have seen him around the time of Botham John case, and he's a well-known, I'll say, activist type attorney, who fights for justice for our people. And he was speaking, he was giving us great insight on the steps we needed to take. Like, we were thinking, oh, you call your city council members, or you call DPD, and he was explaining to us, no, you need to contact your city manager, because that's who is in control. That's who, make the ultimate decisions and whatnot. But anyways, he was just giving us legal insights on the steps and action that was necessary to get justice brought forward in the case of Amber Geiger and the unaliving of Botham John. And after that, we were to march on the city. And I'm not sure, but if you caught all of that news from back in 2018, we did march on the city. We marched from DPD headquarters into downtown Dallas. We marched because rest in peace to Botham John, but he lived only a few feet from DPD headquarters where Amber Geiger worked. Their home was maybe 100 feet away or less. Their apartment complex was literally, they renamed the street to Botham John Boulevard Avenue, something along those lines. But it used to be called South Lamar Boulevard, South Lamar Street. But they renamed the street in honor. I mean, I don't feel like it's honoring when you've slain blood, but neither here nor there. But in honor, in memory of him, they renamed that street. But yeah, we marched from DPD headquarters to the front of his apartment complex. We stopped and, they spoke on the mic, the call to action, call to justice. Then from there, we trekked into downtown Dallas. We stopped in front of each of the news outlets, the major news station, Channel 4, I believe it was Channel 4, Channel 5, Channel 8, whatever the major news station headquarters that are in downtown Dallas. WFAA, that's Channel 8. I believe the other one was Channel 4. Then we marched to the Dallas Morning News headquarters. We also went to the Omni Hotel just to speak, because we have to bring awareness. We have to bring attention to these things. Life goes on for a lot of individuals unless we let our voices be heard. So yeah, but I remember as we left DPD headquarters and we're headed to Botham John's apartment complex where he resided, he and Amber Geiger. I remember I felt someone crossed me real quickly. And I'm always like trying to pay attention to my surroundings. And so I left, there's marchers everywhere, but I'm like, what was that? Who was that? I looked to my left, and then when I looked to my right, it's the pastor. So shout out to the pastor. He know who he is. I was honored and expect the unexpected. I was honored that he joined us. And when I realized who it was to my right, I remember turning to my right. And then when I saw who it was, I just remember telling him, thank you for being here with us. Thank you for being out here with us. Because a lot of our leaders are not out here with us. They're not out here fighting the good fight. They sit back and watch and collect those checks and collect the funding that they need for their communities, which a lot of times are not our communities. They were not born and raised in our communities. So they can't relate, a lot of us born and raised in our communities, we can't relate with this either. But in order for a change to occur, we have to take a stand, and we have to remember where we come from, because a lot of these communities where you may live in now, where you may reside in now, those aren't the communities where you were raised in. So remember where you come from. Remember who are still in these communities. Not everyone is in these communities by choice. A lot of us are in these communities because we're doing the best that we can do with the hands and the card that is dealt. Some of us can do better. Definitely. A lot of us can do better. But yeah, so that's my rant for today. Expect the unexpected is what the divine is saying. I don't think I'm going to be going into any tarot on this reading because I was not anticipating this reading being this long. But hey, it's a message from the divine. We don't seek approval around here. We just demand respect. 3333. Please don't wake our ancestors. Some of them are already awake, babe, and they with the shits. Please don't wake my ancestors. They with the shits. Swear to God, these ninjas watching keeps wanting to show itself. Social media, YouTube, good news is coming in. And not but God, but only God. You did? And God will do it for you. Trust the process, believe in God. And this message is a message that is from the pastor that I am speaking on. This is a sermon that he gave in about 2 months ago. And in the sermon, he said, not but God, but only God. And I added, you did. So with that being said, we give praise and honor to the Most High. And then attorney, I just mentioned an attorney to you guys. We give praise and honor to the Most High. We give honor to the divine for guiding, guarding, protecting us. We give honor to the divine for encouraging us to trust our intuition, to use our discernment. We do not undervalue ourselves nor our gifts. And thanks for joining me here.